The transformation of porn, of the way people live, the way young people live, is one of the sort of unrecognized shifts in our society. I think it's because it's kind of embarrassing and sort of yucky to think about. But certainly, when I look at my students in their 20s, they're a lot less active romantically than I remember myself being. And this is not just an old guy criticizing the young generation. I mean, there's plenty of data showing that young people are not as romantically involved. They're marrying less, they're going on dates less, they're having sex less. And to me, pornography does very likely play a role in that, because it provides a substitute and a distraction from romance and the dance of the sexes. And if we don't have people marrying and forming love relationships and having children, it's the end. And we are looking at civilizational collapse. And that's not just hysterical conservatives saying that. If you look at the data, it's shocking how few people in their 20s and 30s are getting married and having kids and doing the things that traditionally have allowed people to live flourishing, happy lives.
Well, first of all, why don't you explain to me how this new social media law works in Utah, and also, the implications?
Sure. So the social media law largely does two or three things of significance. It says no social media firm can form any sort of account with a minor without the parental consent. And that doesn't mean just click-through consent. You just sort of say, I hereby assert and affirm that I am of majority age. There has to be an independent third-party verification. It requires the social media companies to give access to minors' accounts to their parents, so parents can see what they're doing. To me, that's so vital, because who is raising children? It's not really parents, it's not teachers, it's not coaches or clergymen. It's Twitter influencers, and they're the ones that have the ears and souls of our children, and your parents should be able to know about that.
Or TikTok.
Or TikTok, exactly. TikTok influencers, right. Exactly. And which in many respects really means the Communist Party of China. So that's a problem. And Utah said no. Parents should have access. We see a tremendous amount of mental deterioration among young people, rates of depression, suicidal thoughts, visits to the emergency room because of self-abuse. And again, this is not hysterical old conservative. I mean, it's the data. I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, close to 50% or over 50% of women are on some sort of antidepressants or psychopharmacological drug in certain areas in certain high schools, and this is not good. And one of the big debates in the social science community is it really social media, or is it sleep deprivation? It could be something simple like that, because we know that social media keeps kids up. So what the Utah statute does is says, look, no social media for kids between the times of 10:30 and 6:30 a.m. And just like to this day, there's no indecency programming on broadcast television during those hours. Just like curfews are imposed and been upheld by courts. This is the same thing, but in sort of the internet world.
As I hear about the man, that sounds really restrictive, Adam.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, but it follows from all sorts of rules that we've always had. As I said, curfew rules are hundreds of years old, and they have been upheld by the courts. Children have fewer First Amendment rights than adults, and for instance, indecency programming still exists, regulation still exists for broadcast television. So for those few channels that you get on your cable that are actually broadcast channels, they can't have nudity, they can't say dirty words between certain hours of the day, and that's to protect children. And I think we as a society, not so long ago, have been quite comfortable with more aggressive efforts. And when you have something like the smartphone, which can be smuggled and into a bedroom, and it's very difficult for a parent to control, I think this is an appropriate place for we as a society to say, no, we have to come up with a rule to help everyone.
So bottom line is, websites that are adult websites would have some kind of dialogue that required third-party verification that would make it, theoretically impossible for kids to get into them.
Well, it doesn't do everything. So this limits on the limit is on account formation because of contract law. So essentially, the state can regulate more easily children's ability to form a contract. The problem, again, goes back to the boring court rulings. The Supreme Court in Reno, the ACLU, said, no, sorry. If you're just trying to block porn, age verification is too burdensome, and that we should have filters instead. They said that in 2002. Perhaps we'll revisit this. Other states are moving in legislation to do that, but it does not just block porn. But if, for instance, you want to start an account with PornTube or whatever, you can't do that without your parents' consent. So.
Got it. The curfews is the part that I'm kind of. What does the society think about this?
Well, it depends whom you ask, I guess. Certainly, the sort of corporatist libertarian think tank lobbyist group in DC, they think it's terrible that somehow children will wither and die if they can't be on social media between the hours of 10:30 and 6:30. I think that's a rather sort of esoteric point of view. I think most parents would be quite okay with that. What are they going to do? What horrible things are going to happen? They might read a book. They might talk to their parents. Maybe even they could watch a movie together with their family. And we'll see. I mean, I think courts will look at that rule and sort of say, they could be the absolutists and say, no, we can't have this. This would be terrible. On the other hand, I hope they'll be more realistic and sort of say, look, we sort of need this for family cohesion, for the health of our children, for the future of our society.
Well, and it's very interesting to me that, how deeply you were involved in conceptualizing this, which is something which involves, the hand of government really, putting its finger on the scale, so to speak. On the other side of things, you're very much, a strong free speech advocate, right? And that's reflected in your writing and the cases that you've taken up.
I think traditionally we have always allowed the greatest freedom for political discussion. That's essential for our society. But we've also recognized that other sort of images, other sorts of communications aren't really that great for us. And I think there is a real difference between pornography on the internet and a controversial op-ed or a tweet that people don't like. And I'm for that distinction.